example of why I might say this. I recently had a coworker who turned 26, which meant he had to get off of his parents' life insurance and onto his own. He had to mail in the form. He was fussing about this. Why can't I just fax them in? Because I don't even know where the post office is. I said, well, you drive by the main distribution center for the area every day on the way to work. Was I do? I said, yes. He said, how do I buy a stamp? He goes, where do I go for that? I said, go to the front desk. He goes, well, how do I know what denomination I need? What, do I have to weigh it? What do I need to do to get a stamp? I said, you'll buy one stamp, and it's the same for a typical letter. You will not need more than one stamp. He goes, okay. Now I know my address goes on there somewhere. I'm like, oh, Lord. You millennials. It's sometimes hard to understand the different generations. The things that they went through during the time they were raised have really formed their attitudes and the way they work. Today I'm going to talk about some of the different attributes that kind of define the different generations. I'm going to start with the baby boomers, Generation X, and then the millennials. And the baby boomers grew up in a very turbulent time. It was a time of change. The civil rights movement was in effect, the Vietnam War. All these things really formed how they think now. And it's really a complex generation because they grew up during this time of protests, of hippies, you know, and we're often looked at like, oh, you slackers, by their parents and grandparents. Get to work. The amazing thing is they enacted all these changes, and then they did get to work. Some of the characteristics used to describe baby boomer generation is hardworking, ambitious, and loyal. It's not uncommon to find a baby boomer who has worked at the same company for 35 or 40 years. Very loyal to their company, very proud of going to work every day, very hardworking. Everybody has to grow up sometime. The baby boomers did. They enacted great change, worked hard, and did all this while wearing orange bell bottoms and platforms.
Yes.
I know y'all rock some of those. So moving on to Generation X, which is my generation. This generation is from 1965 to 1980. We're the MTV generation. And as we're sitting in front of TV, watching Madonna videos, wearing our ripped acid wash jeans, baby boomers were like, oh, you slackers. But everything turned out all right. We settled down, got to work, but we do things a little differently than the previous generation did. Instead of being workaholics, as sometimes baby boomers are described, we're more inclined to try to strive for a work-life balance. We don't necessarily want to go to work 8 to 5 every day. Our families are at the forefront of our thought. Not that they weren't baby boomers, it's just enacted in a different way. Unfortunately, we've also coined the term helicopter parenting. We're the generation that says to our 30-year-olds, you can come home anytime, baby. This isn't always good. It can be, but for the most part, it's not. Baby boomers would be like, get out the door. Yeah. So that's one of the negatives of our generation, but overall we've become very hardworking and really, like I said, achieve that work-life balance. Next come the millennials. Now the millennials grew up completely different than any other generation before. They have never known life without the internet. They have never had a night of study with the Britannica Encyclopedia spread out in front of them. They've never had to stamp the chalk out of the erasers of the chalkboard, never used chalkboards. They've always had cell phones. They've never been tethered to a wall by a cord. So these are things that have really impacted their generation. And they totally do not want to be at work. They want to define it on their own terms. They want to do things way differently than the generations before. They want to have meaning and purpose and fulfillment in their jobs. That's extremely important to them. It's not just going to work and being loyal to their company gives them satisfaction. They want to create an impact on their world. And this is something that's different than generations before. Now, something that's interesting is, in my research, I discovered Generation Z. Generation Z is the kids born from the year 2000 to the present. And we don't really know how this generation is going to be defined yet. However, there are predictions that they will go full circle and return back to the traditionalists and the baby boomers. So all these generations have loosened things up, and the prediction is they are going to go back to a more structured society. That sounds really interesting. So now we've discussed the differences in the generations, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, and the millennials. I hope that we can all have a little more understanding of each other, understand the way we grew up, and how this has really formed their attitudes about life. And one thing I would like to leave you with as I conclude is, as I was doing my research, I thought about the Generation Z going back full circle and going back to the way their grandparents did it. And I was left with this one thought. We all just really want to do things differently than our parents.